Jake buys a house. Marcus builds a portfolio. They both start with exactly $250,000. Same money, same day, same city. One of them is going to work every weekend for the next decade. The other one is going to do absolutely nothing. And when you check the scoreboard 15 years later, the answer is not what either of them expected. Let's set the ground rules. Jake and Marcus are both 32 years old. They both just received a $250,000 inheritance. Same amount, same timing, same tax situation. They both earn $60,000 a year at their jobs. They both have stable lives, no existing debt, and no prior investments. The only decision they make differently is what they do with that $250,000 on a single Tuesday afternoon. Jake calls a real estate agent. Marcus calls a brokerage. Jake uses his $250,000 to purchase a rental property outright. No mortgage, no debt, clean title in his name from day one. He buys a 3-bedroom house in a solid neighborhood for exactly $250,000. No loan payments, no interest, just a property he owns completely. His plan is simple: rent it out, collect income, build wealth through appreciation, and never have to think about the stock market again. Marcus takes his $250,000 and puts every dollar into a total market index fund. No stock picking, no timing the market, no leverage. He sets up a $400 monthly contribution from his salary and walks away. His plan is equally simple: let compounding do the work, keep contributing, and never have to deal with a tenant again. On day one, Jake has a house with a for rent sign in the yard. Marcus has a brokerage account with a confirmation email. Jake's friends are impressed. Marcus's friends are not. This will matter less than either of them thinks. Before we run the numbers, we need to understand what each of these investments actually is at its core, because most people compare real estate and stocks the wrong way. They compare the monthly rent check to the monthly brokerage statement and call it a day. That comparison misses almost everything. A rental property is a business. It generates revenue, it has operating expenses, it requires labor, it carries liability, and it demands active management. Whether you do that management yourself or hire someone else to do it, the business runs because someone is working it. That someone is either you or someone on your payroll. An index fund is not a business you run. It is a fractional ownership stake in thousands of businesses that other people run. You contribute capital, other people do the work. The companies generate profits. A portion of those profits compound back into your account. You do nothing except not panic and not sell. Understanding this distinction is the foundation of everything that follows. One investment pays you for your capital and your time. The other pays you for your capital alone. That difference, over 15 years, is worth more than most people realize. Year 1. Jake finds a tenant within 3 weeks. Rent is set at $1,800 a month. Annual gross rental income is $21,600. Since he owns the property outright with no mortgage, every dollar of rent looks like pure profit. On paper, Jake is generating an 8.6 return on his $250,000 investment just from rent alone, before he factors in appreciation, before he factors in tax benefits. On paper, this looks extraordinary. Marcus ends year 1 with his $250,000 having grown to approximately $275,000 after a 10 market return. He's also contributed $4,800 in monthly additions. His portfolio sits at roughly $280,000. He received no phone calls. He fixed nothing. He drove past no properties. He just watched a number grow slightly on a screen. Jake is generating visible cash. Marcus is generating invisible compounding. At this stage, Jake feels like he's winning because his investment is tangible and his income is real. Marcus feels like he's doing nothing because his investment is abstract and his growth is quiet. Both feelings are accurate. Neither feeling tells the full story. Now let's talk about what's actually coming out of Jake's $1,800 every month before he keeps any of it. This is the conversation that never happens at real estate meetups. This is the math that never makes it onto the YouTube thumbnail. Property taxes on a $250,000 home run approximately $2,500 to $3,500 per year depending on location. That's $208 to $292 leaving Jake's account every single month before he touches a dollar of rent. Landlord insurance is not the same as homeowner's insurance. It runs higher, typically $1,500 to $2,000 annually. Another $125 to $167 per month gone. Maintenance and repairs. The industry standard is to budget 1 to 2 of property value annually. On a $250,000 house, that's $2,500 to $5,000 per year. Some years it's nothing. Some years the HVAC system dies in August and the repair is $4,500 and the tenant is threatening to call the city. You cannot predict which year is which. You can only budget for both. Capital expenditures are separate from maintenance. The roof will need replacing. The water heater will fail. The flooring will wear out. The kitchen appliances will stop working. These are not surprises. They are scheduled future costs that most new landlords forget to account for. A roof replacement alone runs $8,000 to $15,000. Spread over its 20-year lifespan, that's $400 to $750 per year you should be setting aside every year you own the property. Vacancy. The national average vacancy rate for residential rentals sits around 6 to 8. That means Jake should expect his property to sit empty roughly 3 to 4 weeks per year on average. Some years it's 0. Some years a tenant breaks a lease, moves out in February, and the property sits empty for 2 months while Jake frantically shows it on weekends. When you subtract taxes, insurance, maintenance reserves, capital expenditure reserves, and average vacancy from Jake's $21,600 annual gross rent, his actual net operating income lands somewhere between $11,000 and $14,000 per year. That's a real return of 4.4 to 5.6 on his $250,000, not 8.6. Not the number that sounded so good in year one. And that calculation still doesn't include a single hour of Jake's time. If Jake manages the property himself, he is working a part-time job without a salary. Tenant screening, lease signing, maintenance coordination, rent collection, move-in inspections, move-out inspections, repair quotes, contractor scheduling. Industry estimates put self-managing landlords at 5 to 10 hours per month on average for a single property. More during turnovers, more during disputes, more during emergencies. If Jake hires a property manager, the cost is typically 8 to 12 of monthly rent. On 1,800, that's 144 to 216 per month. Another 1,728 to 2,592 per year subtracted from his returns. Now his net operating income drops to between $8,400 and $11,300 annually. A real return of 3.4 to 4.5. This is the number the rent check hides. This is the math that doesn't fit on the for rent sign. Marcus, meanwhile, is doing absolutely nothing, and his money is growing at roughly 8 to 10 annually without a single phone call, repair bill, or tenant dispute. By the end of year 3, his portfolio has grown from $250,000 to approximately $345,000 to $365,000, including his monthly contributions. The compounding is quiet. The growth feels slow, but the engine is already running. By year 5, the first major cost hits Jake. The water heater fails. $1,200 to replace. 3 months later, the tenant gives notice and moves out. Jake spends 6 weeks with the property vacant, losing $2,700 in rent while paying $800 to repaint and clean. He finds a new tenant but has to drop rent to $1,750 to compete with newer units in the area. His annual gross rent drops to $21,000. His costs have not dropped. Jake is also starting to feel the weight of the business. He took 2 calls during a family dinner last month. He spent a Saturday getting 3 quotes for a fence repair. He knows his tenant's name, their work schedule, their parking habits, and their complaints about the neighbor. This is not passive income. This is a second job with unpredictable hours and no paid time off. Marcus has not thought about his investment in 6 weeks. His portfolio is approaching $400,000. Year 7, Jake's property has appreciated. Comparable homes in the neighborhood are now selling for $285,000 to $295,000. His asset has grown in value. His equity on a property he owns outright is now worth approximately $290,000. That's $40,000 in appreciation on top of the net income he's collected. Jake's total wealth from this investment over 7 years, factoring in net operating income and appreciation, sits at roughly $320,000 to $340,000 in total value. Marcus's portfolio at year 7 with consistent contributions and compounding sits at approximately $480,000 to $510,000. He contributed $33,600 in monthly additions over 7 years. The rest is compound growth on the original $250,000 and every addition after it. Marcus is ahead, quietly, without doing anything. This is the moment where most real estate investors push back. And they are right to push back, because what Jake has that Marcus does not have is a real, tangible, insurable, leverageable asset. Jake can refinance his property and pull out $150,000 in equity to buy a second rental. He can use his property as collateral for a business loan. He can rent it furnished for $2,400 a month on a short-term basis and double his income. He can renovate and force appreciation in ways that have nothing to do with market conditions. Marcus cannot do any of that. His $480,000 in the market cannot be leveraged to buy another $480,000 in assets without significant risk. His brokerage account does not generate a monthly check he can live on yet. His investment is liquid, but it is not productive in the way a physical asset is productive. This is the core tension. Real estate gives you control. The stock market gives you freedom. Neither is is wrong. They are different tools solving different problems for different people with different lives. By year 10, Jake has made a decision. He hired a property manager 18 months ago after the second tenant dispute in a single year. It costs him $190 a month, but he has his weekends back. His property is now worth approximately $310,000 to $325,000. His cumulative net income over 10 years, after all real costs and property management, totals approximately $65,000 to $80,000. Combined with appreciation, his total investment value is somewhere between $375,000 and $405,000. Marcus's portfolio at year 10 is sitting at approximately $700,000 to $740,000. Total contributions over 10 years including the original $250,000 are roughly $298,000. The other $400,000 plus is pure compounding. He has never called a contractor. He has never shown a property. He has never read a lease agreement. Marcus is now ahead by approximately $300,000 in total portfolio value versus Jake's total investment value. The gap has opened, and it is going to keep opening. Here is why. Compounding accelerates. In year 1, Marcus's 10 return on $250,000 generates $25,000 in new wealth. In year 10, his 10 return on $700,000 generates $70,000 in new wealth. The same percentage is now producing almost 3 times the absolute dollar gain. The engine does not slow down. It speeds up. Every year the base grows larger, which means every year the return in absolute dollars grows larger, which means the next year's base is even larger. Real estate appreciation does not work this way unless Jake is reinvesting his rental income back into property. Appreciation on a single property is linear relative to that property's value. Jake's $310,000 property growing at 3 generates $9,300 in appreciation. Marcus's $700,000 portfolio growing at 10 generates $70,000 in new wealth. The math is not close anymore. By year 15, Marcus's portfolio is approaching $1,100,000 to $1,200,000. He has contributed a total of $322,000 over 15 years including the original $250,000. The compounding has generated over $800,000 in wealth above his total contributions. He is a millionaire and he got there by doing nothing except being consistent and patient. Jake's property is now worth approximately $365,000 to $390,000 after 15 years of 3 average annual appreciation. His cumulative net income after all costs and property management over 15 years totals roughly $95,000 to $130,000. His total investment value, property plus accumulated net income, sits at approximately $460,000 to $520,000. The gap between them is now between $580,000 and $680,000 in Marcus's favor. That is not a rounding error. That is a completely different financial life. Now before this becomes a stock market commercial, we need to address what Marcus gave up that Jake has. Jake has a hard asset. In a stock market crash, Jake's property does not go to zero. It might drop in value temporarily, but it still exists. It still generates rent, and it still provides shelter to someone willing to pay for it. When Marcus's portfolio dropped 34 in March 2020, he lost over $150,000 in value on paper in a matter of weeks. Jake lost nothing that month. His tenant paid rent on the 1st just like every other month. Jake has inflation protection that is automatic and built in. When inflation rises, rents rise. His income grows with the cost of living. An index fund grows in value but does not generate income that adjusts in real time with inflation unless you are selling shares. Jake has tax advantages that Marcus cannot access. Depreciation allows Jake to deduct the theoretical decline in his building's value from his taxable income every year, roughly $7,000 to $9,000 annually on a $250,000 property, even if the property is actually appreciating. This legal tax shelter reduces Jake's taxable rental income to near zero in many years. Marcus pays capital gains tax when he sells and income tax on dividends. Jake's tax situation is structurally more favorable while he holds the property. And Jake has one more thing Marcus will never have: the ability to walk through his investment, touch the walls, fix the fence, plant a tree in the yard, and see the physical manifestation of his financial decision sitting in a neighborhood he chose. That matters to some people. It should matter to some people. Not every financial decision is purely mathematical. The honest verdict after 15 years is this: if your only goal is maximum wealth accumulation and you are willing to be patient and disciplined, the index fund wins on the numbers. It is not close. The compounding advantage over a long enough timeline is structural and almost impossible for a single rental property to overcome without leverage or multiple properties. But if your goals include cash flow you can touch, tax advantages, inflation protection, a tangible asset, the ability to leverage into more properties, or simply the psychological comfort of owning something real. Real estate serves those goals in ways the stock market cannot. Jake and Marcus both made reasonable decisions with the same $250,000. What separated their outcomes was not intelligence. It was not luck. It was not even the investments themselves. It was time, consistency, and a clear understanding of what each vehicle actually does when you let it run for 15 years. The most dangerous thing either of them could have done was choose their investment based on a single number without ever asking, what does this look like in year 5, year 10, year 15, when I include every cost, every hour, every tax bill, and every market drop along the way? Because the investment that wins on paper in year 1 is almost never the investment that wins in life by year 15. And if you are sitting on a lump sum right now trying to decide between these two paths, the question is not which one is better. The question is which one fits the life you are actually trying to build. Because the best investment in the world is worthless if you cannot stay in it long enough for it to work.